So obviously, this is not the most crowded place that we were giving speech. We were expecting to see more people. Thank you so much for everyone who is coming. Hopefully, we will see more faces. Um,
It's okay. I think we're gonna have fun.
yeah,
Just chatting.
totally.
We have very important people in the audience. That's all
Yeah,
that matters.
exactly. So today we will be talking about what's next for Huma Finance, obviously, as it's stated over there. But I like to also talk about his core business because most of the time when I'm giving speeches on the television or X, the toughest thing is that some people know what I'm talking about and they like to get more advanced in terms of topic, and some they don't know. So can you explain us what actually Huma Finance is doing, and then maybe we can improve the conversation with maybe some we can get some questions, or I have some questions for you.
I love it. Start on the surface, dive deep. Human Finance is the first PayFi network. It accelerates the global money movement by utilizing liquidity of the stable coins and the speed and reach of the blockchain ecosystems. It eventually serves the payment institutions that deal with cross-border payments, that deal with making large amounts of payments to businesses around the world, merchant-to-merchant payments, card settlements, especially cards that are backed by digital assets like the Cast card that you have seen. It solves how the money can move fast around the world by using the best form of money and the best medium of money.
All right, I think that's amazing explanation, but I will go a little bit more deeper because I know it's funny in a way, but many people may not know about what is even PayFi. So can you tell us what is PayFi in a nutshell, maybe like one or two sentence?
PayFi is literally payment finance.
Yeah.
Any payment that you do needs to be financed somehow. If you're sending money from Turkey to, let's say, India, that money cannot travel on its own. Someone needs to push a button here,
Yep.
and someone in India needs to finance the settlement of the money there. So every single global money movement is actually financed behind the scenes. You use credit cards, you want to make a payment for merchant, you have to swipe the card, but the card doesn't carry cash inside. That money needs to be financed by an institution, usually a bank, to actually turn into money for merchants. And all of this takes so much time when you use the traditional rails and traditional systems. So PayFi is basically taking the same exact use cases, but using the blockchain ecosystems and stable coins to replace all that old rails. It's the same exact, end result you get, but you get it cheaper and faster.
Amazing. So again, another fundamental question: why you're here? Why Solana?
It's a good question. So Huma originally was built on EVM and launched on EVM. We had an institutional product serving payment institutions on one side, and the liquidity providers, the stablecoin, providers, as institutions on the other side. And we have seen last year that Solana is growing their stablecoin ecosystem so fast. And if you think about what does it take to grow to $1 trillion volume, right? Right now we're at $4 billion of total volume, but
Congrats.
that's, thank you so much. It's actually something we hit just a day or 2 days ago. So we're very happy about it. But in the general scheme of payments, that's just a drop in the ocean, because you're talking about tens of trillions of dollars of money moving around. And to be able to service that, you need very, very deep stablecoin liquidity. And on the EVM side, that liquidity has been fragmented because there's just so many different chains and L2s happening, and the stable coins exist in a limited sense in every single one of them, but there's no deep liquidity. And Solana actually has been growing their stablecoin liquidity for a long time, and it's becoming a de facto launch platform for stablecoins. But also, when you want to actually make the products more useful for depositors as retail instead of just institutions, the largest retail user base, largest active user base is also on Solana. So it was a no-brainer for us to address both of those issues by relaunching Huma as Huma 2.0 literally 2 weeks ago on Solana. Since the launch, we have grown 6x. Our depositors, our LP base grew 6x. And we just hit $4 billion of total volume of transactions, and it's growing at $500-600 million a month rate. Most likely going to hit more than 1 billion a month growth rate around sometime into 2025. Clearly the right choice to launch on Solana.
Fingers crossed. By the way,
Yes.
sorry that I'm checking my phone time to time because our timer is not working, so I have to check the time from my phone. Don't take it as a disrespect to yourself. And I asked question like why you choose Solana because we met in ETH Denver like a couple years ago, 2-3 years ago, and there like I actually, if you would ask me, I would never guess that he will be also moving Solana, but I think there is amazing synergy. So let's go a little bit more deeper in terms of context. We all know that Huma is right now in Huma 2.0. Can you tell us what are the main differences? You mentioned a little bit, you gave some clues, but what is happening in Huma right now and what we are about to see on your end?
I love that. So when we decided to rebuild Huma as Huma 2.0 on Solana, we didn't only want to make it a technical challenge for ourselves. We decided actually that we should rebuild Huma with a different mindset where Huma becomes an incredibly important participant in the overall Solana ecosystem. And we had 3 goals to achieve. One of them was the yield on chain is highly speculative and highly dependent on the bull markets. Whenever you have bear markets, our yield goes down. You have Ethena that was flying to 50% yield. Now it's like 4%, 5%, at most 6% yield. And on the other side, people looking for passive yield, they look at T-bills, tokenized treasuries to just at least have some inflation bets, but that's also like going down around 4%, whatever. There's no good yield source that's independent from the speculative activity on chain. But we know that because Huma deals with real payment flows and generates revenue from real payment flows, we can tokenize that as a yield-bearing LP token, and that can be the basis of a high yield source and reliable yield source on chain. So we basically built this PST token, the PayFi strategy token, that gets feedback from that revenue stream, and it's a double-digit yield. Regardless of it's being a bull market or bear market, doesn't matter. It's non-speculative, it's double-digit yield, and both institutions and people alike love it because it's an inflation hedge for them. And the second thing we wanted to do is go from this institutional focus that we had to a compliant permissionless protocol. Because we're servicing some of the largest payment institutions on one side, they don't want to touch the money that's not coming from compliant regulated sources. And that's the reason why previously we only had institutional liquidity providers on the stablecoin side. But then, after a year of really hard work and hiring some of the best minds in the regulatory ecosystem, we figured out how to build a compliant permissionless layer that the institutions would be comfortable in terms of the liquidity source. So Huma 2.0 is fully permissionless and everything is transferable, and any kind of retail that's not in the sanctioned country list can actually participate as an LP and get this LP token that provides them the yield. The last thing is, a lot of the early participants told us that they're so excited about the potential airdrops and they want to kind of like go maxi. So for them, we built a special mode that's called a maxi mode. So instead of getting the yield, they're getting maximum amount of Huma feathers. People want to ape, and we want to help them at least to a certain extent. And that's why we built the Huma feathers as a new reward program.
I was chatting with one of them downstairs, so he told me that thanks to you, I discovered Huma Finance, and now I am going maximally to get more in terms of airdrops. So when you were talking about the yields, because crypto ecosystem, let's be honest, we suffer a lot because of this yield, right? Problematic yield projects that are giving yields. One time I cannot forget that I was in United States, Palm Beach, and there was, it was just after a Luna collapse, and everyone was there. Everyone was talking about the stable coins, etc. So we know that giving yield is quite tough topic, and you name it like a real yield, and you right now currently are giving 10.5% real yield. Can you tell us how sustainable is this structure? Because I'm pretty sure that many people are wondering about where's that money coming from? Is it sustainable? Is it safe? Are we going to have another crypto collapse moment? And as you're here, we got you. Let's just ask that question to you.
Great question as well. So when we think about the yield, it's easy to put them into two categories. One is the synthetic yield, which is the Lunas of the world, and most yield on DeFi unfortunately has a component of a synthetic yield built into it. And then there's real yield, and we're not the first ones to talk about it. Binance, for a while has been talking about it. RWAs, this like T-bill, tokenized T-bills, popularized this real yield concept because you actually put capital into USDC. Behind the scenes, it's tokenized into treasury bills that generates 5% yield in the real world. That yield comes back as yield on chain. That's real yield. Very similar to that, the yield that is coming on chain when you put capital onto the Huma is derived from the real world activity that happens within this payment flows driven by the payment institutions. A simple example is, you go to Western Union and you want to send money to, from Turkey to, let's say, another part of the world, Philippines. And the money that Western Union collects from everybody in Turkey who wants to send money to Philippines, at the end of the day, is packaged into a batch of bags, and then they need to find a settlement partner, usually accounts pre-funded, and tell them, okay, I have this much money to settle in the Philippines. Can you please settle for me? And they pay enormous amount of fees, for this kind of services. And they need to have all these partners all around the world. There's about $4 trillion locked in this kind of like pre-fund accounts to settle, different corridors. And a lot of times, when you actually receive money, you think you received money. I heard this story last week. Someone told me they got money from a friend in Europe, through Western Union. They walked into the Western Union in Istanbul. They told him, "We don't have your money." It's like, how comes? Like, we're just dry in dollars. Like, we don't have your money. And this liquidity crunch keeps happening more and more places of the world, especially in this new, world reality. What Huma does is it makes it solve their problem by utilizing the stablecoin liquidity. And they pay a service fee. Every single day they're using liquidity on chain. They pay 6 to 10 basis points for accessing this liquidity. And it's amazing because they don't have to do all of these complicated things. They don't have to have thousands of accounts all around the world. They don't need to have so many payment partners and pay enormous amounts of money to just utilize them. They can just tap into USDC liquidity on chain and pay 6 to 10 basis points a day. There are 250 business days a year. 10 basis points a day is 25% a year. 6 basis points a day is 15% a year. So you're making anywhere from 25% by just addressing this money flow issues. And there's just so much more demand than we can supply for. That's where the sustainable 10% plus yield comes from. Because even if you take out all the costs associated, you're still able to provide 10% plus real yield. That's why it's called real yield, because it doesn't move based on the bull market, bear market. It just moves based on how much money is moving around the world, and that demand never disappears.
Perfect answer. Thank you so much. For the ones while he's taking a breath and drinking a little bit of water, for the ones that who don't know what Arbil was doing before, he was working for Facebook, right? I mean, there are a bunch of other stories between, but why I'm telling you all this, because many people who lived in the United States, I'm coming from TradFi, they know that our solutions over here, even for Bitcoin, is being more valuable if you can use it as a collateral. So in Huma, what they do is that you can actually create a kind of credit line for your real world assets, right? This is extremely important because collateralizing something creates another dimension for your business model. And that's why most of the time when you watch Bloomberg or when you watch these Wall Street guys on the television, you see that real revolution will happen right after when we can collateralize our digital assets, including Bitcoin and others. So my question will be related with this one. On Huma, you can actually get collateralized real world assets, but when we look at the real world asset part, it is still small. Is it worrying you somehow? Because in order to collateralize something, there should be a huge pool, right? Otherwise, it will be a limiting factor for your core business. So how do you see real world asset tokenization business, especially what happened with Mantra, etc.? And what should we expect from real world asset side? And is it limiting your core business?
Great question. So there are two sides of the equation. There's a supply and there's demand. Supply being the stablecoin liquidity. There is not enough stablecoin liquidity in the whole world to support tens of trillions of payment flows happening in the real world. So the stablecoin liquidity is so limited in exchange for this demand that you have on the payment flows. But the payment flows are not moving onto utilizing stable coins today either. So if anything, it's a good thing that this is not growing at like 1,000% a month kind of like a rate. It's moving as large institutions like Amazon trying to figure out how to move $1 trillion every single year from the US and Europe based buyers to Asia based sellers. And this problem can only be solved utilizing PayFi, utilizing stablecoin blockchains. So it's going to take them for sure a few months to pilot, a few months to deploy in a certain region, another few months to kind of like get comfortable with their payments treasury to actually move money off of the banks into the stablecoin treasuries and stablecoin custodies. It's going to take a few years probably for them to move as good chunk of that $1 trillion of money over to this. But once it happens, then you're actually creating a new reason for the supply to come on chain because that capital is generating yield to attract more people to utilize their fiat, maybe turning into stable coins and getting that yield on chain. And then that larger pool of money then supports another large use case to say, okay, now the stablecoin liquidity is actually really big. I can get good rates on chain. Let me actually pull some of my workflow. This can be some of the largest card networks in the world trying to basically push some of that network volume over. Because today, the fastest card settlement for the merchant takes at least 2 days, sometimes 30 days if you go to Brazil and stuff. That's crazy. You're swiping the card, you're doing an old flow. That old flow can go to the blockchain, can ask, do I have liquidity to settle right now? You can actually have real-time settlements for all the merchants in the world. This is especially important for emerging market merchants, and you can just settle right there. Why not? Why not? And I think that is what's going to enable the biggest unlocks. And where we are right now is still very, very, very early.
Yes, I think he touched another amazing point because, look, let's be honest. Sometimes having access to commodity or money is far more important than many other stuff. Let me give you an example of this. There was a major earthquake 2 years ago in the southern part of Turkey, right? And these people need immediate access to money. So me and like a famous rock star in Turkey, we start a donation campaign and we managed to raise $6.5 million in a really short period of time. That was really important because that gives people a chance to get access to this money because of instant transaction power of crypto. And now you're talking about instant provision. Why it's important? Because if you are a guy who is trying to make business, you need to access the money. And most of the time, who suffer from this transaction delays are the guys behind us, because we go there and we pay by our card and we get the coffee or we get the water, but then on the back end side there is a big hustle. And as look, the banking system, the finance, yes, it's evolving, but it's evolving quite slowly, especially when we look at even the United States, which is basically the heart of finance right now. They just started Fed Now system, right? Even in Turkey, we were barely able to transfer money from one bank to another bank right after bank close. So that's why I think really important what you just described. And let's hear some other interesting stories about this instant provision from you, because probably your business has another side where you go and touch business owners, because you need a user like us, you need a liquidity provider somehow, and you also need some business owners who has to use your system. So when you touch them and when you chat with them, what kind of stories you're hearing about this instant provision problem, or are they being really happy that you're trying to solve this big issue?
Um, Absolutely. So the funny thing about money is everybody knows their problems with money very, very well, right? Like my mom knows what her problems are with money. I know what my problems are with money as well. And the merchant knows what their problem with the money is. And especially if your business is moving money, you're very, very well aware, aware of what's really challenging for you and what would actually make a huge difference for you. We have found that working directly with payment institutions instead of the merchants themselves or instead of the end users themselves solves the problem immediately, because the end user might not necessarily realize how something like this can really change things for them, but the payment institution does, because they've been sitting on this for long enough that and losing their hair for long enough that anything that makes their lives easier, they're in. It has been maybe 100 years that companies like Western Union existed, right? The moving money globally is not a new thing. Today, the problems they have is the same exact problems they had 100 years ago. It hasn't changed.
That's a little
Hasn't
bit
changed.
funny though.
They have tools, but banks are still freaking closed over the weekends. Hasn't changed because banks still have liquid challenges. Hasn't changed because try really hard to send USD from Turkey to somewhere else and see what happens. I've been trying. It doesn't work.
Yeah,
So
obviously it doesn't work.
and as an individual, that might be okay. I can live with that. But as a payment institution, you cannot. So these guys have been having the same problems, and sometimes it's just actually worse because you have all these tools, but you can't help yourself. So we go to those ones who basically have been having a lot of gray hair, and when you solve the problem with them, it's actually very easy for the solution to have a ripple effect to the end user without the end user actually knowing that their problem is being solved now with a complete new technology that's enabling those payment flows.
All right, thank you for another great answer. I think we have around 8 minutes left, and I just check the Huma Finance total volume of transaction reach out to 4.1 billion. Congrats! I think you're accelerating. So, as someone, I will be in Dubai next weekend. I will have another panel like that with the CEO of Tether, Paulo, and right now what we see is that I think it's kind of complementary what were you describing. Like everyone is focusing on digital payment side, so collateral being like using crypto assets as a collateral will be the hard topic. But another thing I saw downstairs, because I'm a guy in the space for like almost 8 years now, and I was in the first Solana summit in Lisbon, and at that time we don't see much cards on the screens. Now we have fancy screens and we see bunch of cards. So let's talk about a little bit what's next for Huma Finance, and are we gonna see a Huma card in future?
Great question. Huma Card, maybe. So our former company, the fintech, actually tried to build a card, and I think there are guys who have more patience to deal with all the problems that comes with cards, like the fraud and stuff. So Cast is an amazing example. It's one of the fastest growing PayFi ecosystem partners we have. And if you need a PayFi enabled card, go get a Cast card. This is amazing. Um, and you mentioned Tether is actually probably the biggest player in PayFi today is Tether. A lot of people do not know that yes, Tether is well pegged to US as a trading pair, and that has been the number one use case for USDT for a while. But Tether is also the medium of payments and medium of payment financing for some of the largest oil crude trade in the world. And that's one of the top use cases, and that industry is $10 trillion on its own a year. So they are one of the biggest PayFi players. They don't talk much about it, but a lot of the oil trade actually happens over Tether now, and there are a lot of obvious reasons for that.
Yeah,
The
sanctions.
de-dollarization and what happens with
Also,
that.
sanctions are part of it.
Sanctions are part of it probably. So they're doing a lot. On the Huma side, we are way more focused on really enabling more of these large institutions who have these problems and had these problems for decades to take them step by step, right, onto this new ecosystem, onboard them, make sure everything is so simple to use for them. And after that, we are planning to expand to decentralizing the technology further, decentralizing the PayFi, incentives further. So with the Huma Airdrop and Huma, launching its own native token, there's going to be a lot of effort to building the supply demand in a very balanced way to make sure that the people who want to build PayFi use cases or bring PayFi players onto the ecosystem and network are well incentivized to do that in a sustainable way. And the same thing happens on the LP side. Whenever there's more demand for deeper liquidity, the network can incentivize that to happen as well. Because the funny thing is, when we launched this maxi mode versus classic mode you get 10% plus USDC yield. We thought everybody's gonna go into classic mode. It makes so much sense to put your dollars into getting 10% plus yield. But what happened is 70% of depositors chose maxi mode where you get zero,
Yeah.
zero return, zero yield on USDC, but you get maximum amount of human feathers, which is going to turn into airdrops. So it's a funny place we're in. We're trying to figure out how to create this long-term sustainable model, and we're going to keep experimenting with the right incentive models.
That's surprising in a way, but also I think it's great to see that they're believers slash users because people believe in you, so they prefer to get your points rather than money. I think that's good. By the way, 10% is a great yield. So we have 3 minutes left, and I like to get at least one question from you, but I like to also give you some time to think because we're the last panel. So I think we can expand like maybe a couple minutes. Now, I would like to ask you, by decreasing gear a little bit, a personal question, but I will also connect it with the ecosystem. So, how it feels to be a Turkish man and the entrepreneur lives in United States? The question will be connected with that one. Up until this year, we were not seeing we were seeing bunch of talents. Obviously we can see it from the GitHub stats, etc., but we were not seeing the talents from United States who are coming to the crypto because of the lack of regulation, etc. But what happened in Thailand, like with this DevCon, I start seeing really talented people from United States, especially Silicon Valley, start showing some interest. I think this is amazing because it will create somehow multiplier effect. As someone who are already there, I would like to double check if I understand well in this. With this clarity from regulation side, I believe we start seeing more and more talent flooding in to the crypto space. Can you confirm this and how it feels to be a Turkish guy, lives in the United States, and have a crypto startup? I think it's not startup anymore, but anyways.
I love it. So when I first moved to US 2007, the kind of song that keep ringing in my head is like, I am an alien in New York. That's kind of how it feels. And I'm sure you felt similar when you first, went abroad. because we just feel like you're fresh out of water, uh, and that feeling goes away, especially in Silicon Valley. That feeling goes away because you immediately start connecting with like-minded people who like to go find problems in the world to solve. And when you dive into that problem, identity, where you're from, everything disappears. And that was a great transition for myself, my classmates from college, because we all moved together, literally 25 of us, live in the dorm, sometimes feeling a bit, inferior because we're coming from Turkey, we don't know anybody, we don't speak, fluent English, whatever. We don't have any VCs. Everything we do, we have to like work really hard and start from zero, fund each other, right? Like to help each other. If you can find engineers, like I'm gonna stop by Udemy's office to, help them with whatever they need help with. So this kind of like community actually gets built stronger when you're coming, all together to build something great. So I think we benefited from that quite a bit. And then from there, when we start building Huma in US, the same, song came back to my mind. I'm like, we're building crypto in the US is like, I'm an alien in this new ecosystem, and the US is an alien in crypto. And for a while, we felt that way because we felt like we are doing everything right. We're not building a speculative use case. We're not shilling meme coins. We're solving real problems for real world, real people, real merchants. And because of that, a lot of people told us like, just leave the US. Like, why are you staying here? Just to build your company in like Hong Kong, Dubai, Switzerland, somewhere else. And we told them like, because we're not doing anything wrong, you're gonna stick with it. You're gonna stay here because eventually US has to wake up. The money flowing through the US to the world is such insane amounts of volume of money. And if nobody solves those problems in the US because they don't have the guts to stay in the US, who's going to solve this problem? And we've seen a lot of our, cohorts that have got funded by the US VCs, live in batches. And I'm glad we didn't. I'm glad we stuck with it because now we're seeing everything turning around, 180. And that's why, you probably have seen things have changed. Even the foundations we are seeing that has, formed themselves in different parts of the world are being repatriated back into the US. And I'm so happy to see this, not because I'm so bullish that the US is going to win the whole thing. I think crypto democratizes everything and it's a global playing field and there's going to be so many winners everywhere. I'm happy because the largest player and the largest hub of payments and finance is not outside of this world, and it encourages more and more institutions and more ecosystems to participate as well. So I think it's bullish for US, it's bullish for the whole ecosystem.
Perfect. Do you have any question? Now or never moment. I think we have a question back there. Can we give him a microphone? We already exceed 2 minutes, but they give me this flexibility, so I think we can get another question.
Hello,
Yes,
can you hear me?
yes, we can hear you. Wow,
Okay, some protocols, popular protocols on Solana have like multiply, amplify to provide more yield. Does Huma Finance see a value there?
Great question. So we are very much focused on PayFi and building the network and making sure that the yield effectively flows into the PST token, which is our liquid LP token. But the beauty of DeFi is you don't need to build everything yourself. That's why we partnered with Jupiter, partnered with Camino, and partnered with RateX. With Jupiter, you can take this collateral, this LP token PST, and you can swap into anything you want. And that already gives you so much more flexibility in terms of what you can drive from this yield. And then Camino is launching a PST pool where you can use the PST LP token as collateral to borrow again, which means you can actually loop to farm so much more yield than what would be available to you as just 10%, right? If the funding rate is, let's say, 6%, and you're already making 10%, you can loop many times to boost that yield on Camino. And that's what they do best, so we're letting them basically build integration. And then RateX, which is like the Pendle on Solana, is taking this PSD token and saying that I'm going to create a YTPT split, and I'm going to give people an option to leverage your yield component to get more from this yield. And we're saying that's great because we don't need to do anything ourselves. Somebody's taking this token, it's a simple SPL token, and building something greater with it. So I think the best part of building something composable in DeFi is that everybody can do something with it. And because the yield component is so stable and something that doesn't exist, every protocol now wants to build on PSD. And I think people will benefit from it, even though we don't touch, a single line of code, as long as we continue to give them the opportunity to build the best experiences and integrate them back into our own ecosystem. So you will find more opportunities to boost the yield.
Thanks to DeFi and the other platforms. All right. So one more question, maybe. Any other questions?
I actually have one question for FM.
Okay.
So I maybe
That's
gonna
right. I wasn't
help with that.
expecting that. Yes.
The question for you is, obviously, we met a long time ago, and since then I've been following everything you've been doing. The success with also first batch, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's been so great to see. Another Turkish founder. I'm doing incredible things in this ecosystem, and you've been following Huma as well, and you probably know way more than most people about Huma and PayFi. I'm curious, what's the bullish case for you when you think about PayFi?
So I will be sorry for that, guys. Yeah. Thank you so much for the question. I am coming from TradFi, so I'm a traditional guy who got mad to entire ecosystem and this finance, etc. And then I decided to move here. And when I start, after I make like really good amount of money from this ecosystem, I start making angel investments. And in order to make angel investment, you have to travel. So I was traveling. That's why I was in Lisbon back in 2021 November, I believe. And one of the sad thing that I saw was really horrible user experiences, horrible UIs, and really weak user cases. Okay, and that was a big problem for the end users. But there was another big problem, which was perception. Most of our life is based on perception. What I mean by that, even the finance economy is all about perception. Look at the central banks. Once you lost the psychology, once you're not aware of what the society is thinking, if you're weak on sociology, then it's being really hard to manage the money. And it's really been hard to manage people's expectation. So why I'm talking all about this weird stuff, to answer your question, it was really hard to explain ordinary people, everyday bank users, what we are doing in crypto. So PayFi is bringing an amazing solution here, especially with real world assets. So we can actually explain people what we're doing here, and we can actually show them a real life solution or a business case. So where I see PayFi is that it's like a flag carrier for me for crypto, and we'll be creating one of the most solid business case for many people. And I think we will see triple-digit growth number on PayFi and real-world asset side of crypto. And I think Huma will be very first stage of this fight. That's why I'm quite bullish, and I'm a big fan of what you're doing with Huma. Thank you so much for coming here and spending your time to listen us. First, I was afraid that the room was empty, but now then you came and listen us. Hope to see you again the other events. Again, thank you so much. Thank you.